Welcome. Sorry for the council being late. We had a meeting this morning regarding some daycare, Head Start programs with some people that came from out of town, so that's kind of ran long, so we apologize for being late. The purpose of this meeting is to notify the community, and also yourselves probably, most of you are staff here, but of what's going on. That's one thing why we canceled the council meeting today, was because this is really important for us as a community to know what's going on, and we're trying to make communication better. So basically what happened is that Friday, memo went out to all staff with regards to the phase 2 part of our shutdown plan. Phase 1 ended up where we did lay off approximately 8 to 12 individuals at that time. Some were voluntary, some were not. Some took reduced hours. And then phase 2, we did probably lay an additional maybe up to 8 people, but then about 25 or more took reduced hours. And we decided at that time as a council that maybe we should let everything settle for a while, because things have been progressing very fast for this whole situation. And so phase 3 now will not be discussed. I won't say implemented. It won't be discussed until February 4th. We're hoping in that meantime that, people can get their work done and not have to worry about if they're going to be there or not, but also to hopefully, who knows if the government will open by that time. It's about a 3-week period. So the one thing we wanted to do though, and on Monday, and I'm not sure, because we were at a 1854 meeting with Fond du Lac. There was a memo that was put out for the community letting them know that, number one, we're having a community meeting this morning here, but also we'll be meeting at 2 o'clock at the Vermilion Social Center to answer any questions that some people may have, because one of the questions I heard was, well, what services are going to be provided and how do we know and how do we get a hold of them? So this memo that went out does explain that currently all services operating are as usual, available 5 days a week. So no services have been cut totally. There have been some services that have been made with adjustments, and that would be Bigwoods Transit. They did scale back with limited routes. The contract routes will still continue, which is Fortune Bay and the Cook Hospital. And to contact for route update is an 888-757-1540 number. They did go what they call with their dial-a-ride program to 2 days a week. And one thing that I've been stressing to people is that the impact of the Zoop's grocery store fire is really impacting the Nett Lake community. Because now, I know a lot of us would stop at Zoop's to do either our grocery shopping or pick some stuff up, and now we aren't able to do that. So it's a planning process on behalf of the households to have to figure out what they need as far as groceries, because you have to go to Virginia for that. So. The Heritage Center will remain closed until further notice. That was one of the shutdowns that occurred on the January 3rd meeting. The fitness centers are closed, however, both in Nett Lake and Vermilion, but entry is still available by the existing key fob only at both locations. So there is a process, and I'm thinking that maybe if we could get something out on, because I know that they pay, some people might pay monthly, or some people do payroll deductions to have their access to the fitness centers. So we'll get something out on who the contact will be for that and how they'll get their cards if people want to do it more so now, if they're not working, or just to relieve some of the stress, is to go to the fitness centers. The Boys and Girls Clubs in Nett Lake and Vermilion are closed until further notice. And our realty leasing program has been scaled back with limited access. Information can be left with the front desk at either Nett Lake or Vermilion, and it will be reviewed weekly. Right now, there will be no further layoffs or reduced hours until we meet February 4th. Maybe one thing I can mention is that what would be really nice for our departments and even the community, if you have some ideas on what we can do, we would welcome those very much so, because having to make these decisions isn't very easy. And the more input we have from community and from our staff is pertinent. It is difficult. And we have been, I did talk with Lieutenant Peggy Flanagan yesterday, and or the day before, and the state is also working on a way to try and help with regards to services and those types of things, because an email came out from DHS as an example, wondering how services are being cut and what can they do to help. There are people that are willing to help. I know that the lands with the local church service have been asking possibly what can they do, so that's another avenue that we can do. The main thing we did is, and for staff, they all know that we did do priorities. Example is law enforcement, health, human services, and emergency services. Roads, got to have our roads cleared. And there's a long list of those services that will still be provided. So right now, all services are available currently and will be until the beginning of February. Now, I know I sat in on one call, because of course there's a lot of conference calls going on everywhere with regards to department meetings. IHS is having conference calls, and different departments that are still trying to figure out what to do. I know some people heard that the IRS workers are getting called back, but they won't be paid, because that was an issue with regards to getting tax refunds. It's tax time. We all know that. We're wondering if we owe or we'll get a refund from the government. Apparently, they're still going to try to do the taxes. But I know that in listening to a call from the IHS a few days ago, as an example, the Oglala Sioux tribe said that they only had 2 weeks of funding left, and after that they were going to have to discontinue their ambulance service. So this is impacting tribes very much so, and our urban areas are also being impacted with healthcare and services. And so right now we did leave our urban offices open because we feel that it's important for our band members and people to access services through the urban offices. Right now it's looking like we could probably stay in operation until the end of February. Right now, and the one thing we did also, as chief, the one thing we did also talk with is Fortune Bay. Fortune Bay will, we can do in-house transfers for staff or people that are laid off if they're interested in any of the positions over at Fortune Bay. What that means is that they can, let's say you might want to do, well, I'll use myself as an example. I like washing dishes. So they have a dishwasher position open. I would be willing to go over there and do that. And I could be transferred over by the tribal government and not have a cut or not have anything with my years of service. It would still continue on. The employees will have health insurance until the end of January that have been laid off. So if they chose to go over to Fortune Bay, they could get insurance February 1 at Fortune Bay. So there wouldn't be a lapse in that coverage for them. It is different hours, shift work, and it is different pay, but it would be something that they could do. And then once the shutdown's over, they could hopefully come back, because we're assuming that most of the programs will be refunded, but we can't guarantee that at this time because we don't know what the federal government's going to do. So, oh yes, Millie. Okay. 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 Millie Holmes had just mentioned that people on Social Security have those that have already been in the system or have already been funded, and that shouldn't be a problem. But with new people, we're not sure if that may impact them or not at this time. I know that one of the issues that we're running into, oops, I'm sorry, Kim Greiner. Okay. Okay, Kim Greiner, our CFO, just mentioned that at Congress there's mandatory functions and there's also discretionary functions. And so Medicaid and, which is medical assistance, and the Social Security are mandated programs, so those are funded automatically. One thing I learned when I was talking to Lieutenant Governor Flanagan is that with regards to the EBT food stamps, those cards come from the federal government. And so the state is wondering how are they gonna, if somebody gets on food stamps new or their EBT cards, how are they gonna do that? So there's a lot of state and federal connections there that the state has to figure out also. The one thing that IHS and I believe BIA are not mandated programs. And one thing I know that Aaron Payment, the chairman from the Sault Ste. Marie tribe, went out to DC and was there yesterday testifying that NCAI had a resolution, the National Congress of American Indians had a resolution years ago stating that IHS and BIA programs, along with some other programs for tribes, need to be considered as mandatory, similar to the VA, Medicaid, and the rest of them. But right now they're discretionary, so that's why they're not funded. Yes, Stan? Yes, they are. Mm-hmm. And Stan brings up a good point. He said that the federal government, has a treaty. We have the treaties with regards to our health, education, and welfare that the federal government has a trust responsibility to do, and they're not upholding that, which is true. But the powers that be have decided to leave us at discretionary funding. So this is something that we as tribal leaders and tribes need to, again, pursue to have Congress make it be mandated funding. Right now it's not. I know. It is frustrating. It's frustrating for us as tribal leaders, and it's frustrating even more so when you're a tribal member and, these are our treaties and they need to honor them, and they're not. I don't know if any of you guys have anything else to say. Go ahead, just say if questions or comments or.
One thing I wanted to point out was that when we were talking about the health, we were talking about the revenue that they have, and do they have enough revenue to keep everybody on board? We need to flush that out more to see where we're at with the health. Do they have enough revenue to keep everybody on board, and if so, for how long before we fall back on the tribal dollars? Because the main point is to try to conserve and stretch the tribal dollars as much as we can to keep our services to the band members for as long as we can.
Another thing that I got a text from on this morning's Mesabi Daily News that said that Governor Tim Walz told the press that the state is footing the bill to keep the government going, and that they aren't guaranteed that the federal government will pay the state when the shutdown is over. But also the governor also said that he didn't know how long they will continue to do this, and that the state has already spent over $100 million to cover costs for the federal programs. also the state is doing exactly what we're doing, and we have used know what reserves we have to keep our government going, and that we don't know if we will get it back once the shutdown is over. And right now, there's approximately about 6,000 federal employees that have been furloughed or are working without pay. And the state Human Services Commissioner has said that that all Minnesotans will have their EBT cards loaded for the month of February, but cannot assure that this will that this assistance cannot be assured for assistance after that. So people that are getting those EBT cards that Kathy was just talking about should stock up on their basics and kind of get ready for who knows how long this will last. So that's kind of a little short brief on the EBT cards. So
I think that's what I was just going to say, is before the audience speaks, wait for the mic, because people are messaging me and saying that they can't hear the audience when they talk.
Is there a lot of communication between tribal entities, like on a situation like this? Why couldn't you start a threat and a class action lawsuit against the government of all the tribes?
I think right now each tribe, and that's a good point, I think right now that each tribe is just trying to figure out what to do internally. And I think the longer this goes on, that externally tribes will get together. Because, for example, I know that the tribes in Minnesota, I believe right now we're the only ones that are really planning this, doing this planning process. Because, for example, Prairie Island, they're okay. They can make it. So there are tribes out there that can make it, and there are those that are closing their doors already, smaller tribes. So, that's a good point, but I think tribes are right now just concerning with the local internal stuff first, and then maybe from that point, from that point on, maybe we can go external. The other thing that was mentioned, I'm sorry, who's got the mic? Jackie. Mm-hmm.
So, be serious about making plans ahead. We have such a short growing season here.
Mm-hmm.
I just would encourage whoever community garden to really start someplace early. Because, like I said before, we have things like
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jackie. I know one comment was made, and I haven't had a chance to relay this to any of the directors or programs, but someone mentioned if this goes on longer, what's the possibility of extending our deer hunting season, for example? Those types of things to try to make it, I guess, in some aspect. But Teresa?
They're starting their own community food banks, where the members that are working.
I think that's an excellent idea, Teresa, sorry, Jackie. I was looking at Jackie. I think that's an excellent idea. That's something that we can look at. Because we used to have a food shelf or food bank up here, and then it kind of went away. I don't know why. But I know that I'm sure that our local food shelves, the one in Cook or the one in Virginia or wherever people go, I bet those are really being impacted now, even more so. So if we could have our own local, that would be really good. I'm not sure what the urban programs, if that's an issue, or but we can look at that also.
Does anybody know if they have the food bank in Cook? I know some of our band members used to go over there. Yes. Still have. Okay.
Thank you, Darren. That's a great suggestion.
I have another question too, my actual original question. There's still a business development.
The small business program, is that what you're talking about?
Do we have any economic development works in the works?
Not currently, no.
No.
The small business loan, you got me confused. You mentioned the business loan program, but
Wasn't there a business development corporation?
the Bois Forte Development Corporation is the tribal council, and it's got the businesses under it, which is the C-store, the C-store, the Y store, and Fortune Bay, and WELY. That's the development core. Yep.
And what are their responsibilities?
Um,
What is their purpose?
It's to, first of all, oversee and get into the business development and try to run our own businesses. But we found that a lot of the businesses that we had before failed. So right now, what we're trying to do is just, we had to do a makeup. How do I want to say that? Kind of had to make up some tracks here with regards to the businesses. And Fortune Bay being one of our biggest businesses and contributors to our revenue. And so they in turn needed to do some things internally there in order to make that business better. So that's where we're at right now. As far as any type of other economic development, I know that it's been proposed, and people probably do not know this, but it has been proposed to do a resolution that allows our band members to have input on any future economic development. That might be at the next council meeting. So that's not right now.
And then those business ventures that you put forth,
Hmm.
I'm guessing they
Yes. Yes.
what have you done to make that money back?
We haven't done anything with that.
As it was being spent, was there any?
With the money we lost, the $8 million surplus that was there was utilized to diversify our economic development, and that was those businesses, Tim Hortons, Power Rain, the Lube Center, went there. So that came out of actually Fortune Bay revenues. So that's why Fortune Bay is having to do internally things right now, because it left them very short and not updating on facilities and repairs and generators and that type of thing. So that's what they're working on now. But in the near future, and I'm saying near, that we will be able to then go forward with an economic development plan with the tribal members' input.
My friend Curtis Decora, he works down for Latin Plan.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys down there are all getting together.
Mm.
Corporation.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
I think it might be a good idea to maybe.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Darren. That's a good idea. David just mentioned that Red Lake, White Earth, and Leech Lake do that right now. Good. Right. Mhm. Thank you, Kim. I know one of the things that Kim mentioned with St. Louis County is that they develop those or process those 600 applications. Maybe in the future, maybe the tribes could help the counties by processing apps right here at our tribal sites. I mean, that might be an opportunity to help alleviate some of that in the future, part of a plan to better provide services to our tribal members. So.
One of the issues came up here a little while ago was on our live feed is people cannot hear the questions from the audience. We would like at this time ask you guys if you could come up to the podium and ask your questions so that it can be heard by the public, please.
Come on, Stan.
That microphone don't work.
Oh.
Thank you.
I'm taller than that. I'm really tall. I put it over here. I was getting some fruit over there, and Millie was looking at me mean because I was taking a lot of raspberries, and I said, "Well, I'm an elder now, and I'm a crabby elder." I didn't take all of them, but I mentioned a consortium, planning for a consortium for healthcare, like a lot of the tribes do, and they get a big discount from that, and that was quite a few years ago because I found out Mike and I work for a research program at the U, and we found out a lot of things about healthcare for working in that project. But the thing is, what we're hearing now is that this tribal council has kind of taken it on themselves to take the heat for the past mistakes of just inadequate due diligence in the other projects that we had. And that's just part of learning, and that's part of business, and making mistakes and failing is a part of learning. So I'm just saying at some point we're going to have to take another big step and start doing things, joint ventures, even international. We have to look bigger than St. Louis County and our reservation. We have to take some big, giant steps, and it's scary. I know, I've done this. And I've been an entrepreneur and inventor all my life. And I know how hard it is to get things going. Trust me, I know that. But the thing is, we have to do something. We can't just, status quo isn't going to work for us, because the government is going to close the door. They are. And it's in the wind, and people watch the news, and I diligently watch the news every day, and I get readings from different things, and so I know what's going on in the world, but we have to take some big steps, and I'm hoping that the tribal council will understand that it's not all their fault that we had these failings. We can have due diligence is what's needed, and it needs to be thorough, and we're going to have to do some big things. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. I know I did receive a couple questions regarding scholarships, if those would be impacted, and no, they will not. Currently, scholarships will remain as is. Another one, I can't remember what it is. No, I had a Jackie. another area that was mentioned, and that was our midwinter powwow. And the thinking on that, it's a large expense. The powwows get $25,000 per powwow. And so it was mentioned that we still have it, but have a mini powwow, I guess, in an evening type setting that we would incorporate with the immersion camp that's happening, so our ceremonies can still continue. That was discussed. So right now that's in the works, in the process, and I know there excuse me, I know there's questions on that from some of the staff with regards to that, but that was the intent for the midwinter powwow, is to incorporate it in as a mini powwow, like in the evening on one of the nights for the immersion camp.
I think that too, it doesn't have to go all 3 days. It could just be an afternoon session, just enough to take care of the ceremonies. Whoever's overseeing, like if it's Anton Truer, he could just explain different aspects of the powwow so we have a better understanding of it. Start this powwow, do your ceremonies, wrap it up, then continue on with the immersion camp. Getting back to what Stan said, about the business stuff, is that, the past tribal governments that did, tribal councils, that did buy into these businesses, they had the right idea to expand. Just that they went into the wrong businesses. And myself learning from that, looking at that, is that we weren't afforded the opportunity to offer input on it. And at some point in time, if our tribal government is able to do that again, to look at creating a business, is that we put the business idea before the band members to ask questions, to give input. 3 heads are better than 2. 5 are better than 4. Because you guys can see stuff that we can't. I'm limited by what I can't see. And I don't have all the answers. And I don't claim to. Hopefully someday we'll be able to do that. But we do need to try. We need to do something. We can't stay the same. The government shutdowns is showing us that.
I wanted to say I think community input's good, but to create a successful business, you need to have people that have knowledge on how to run a business. And you need, feasibility studies, and there's all these other things. You can get all the input and you can have 5 heads, but what do they know about businesses? And if you don't get the right people, if you can't create a business committee with people you think can expand these businesses, it's going to fail. So,
like I said on my post, and I'm pretty sure you read it, is that if we did have a business team to analyze our business ideas to see which ones could work or would work, and go forward to the best ideas. I mean, it's a process. No matter what we do, there's always going to be somebody that's going to want to shoot it down and say it's not going to work. We still got to try. We still got to try.
Thanks for clarifying about the immersion camp.
You're too tall.
Thanks for Can you hear me? Thanks for clarifying the immersion camp. I think that'll definitely be able to work.
Okay.
So
good.
That's all I had to say.
Okay. Thank you, Chaz. There are a lot of questions out there, and the main thing is that, if you have a question, please ask. Ask anybody. If you don't know, try and ask a council member. Excuse my voice. But right now, we don't even know. So we have we've learned from this whole process that we need a plan in place. So we're going to be working on that in the event another government shutdown happens, which with this administration, who knows. The other thing is that we are going to be looking at building reserves that we're going to put a portion of money away each year, and actually Shane brought it up, and I think it's an excellent idea where we put money into a reserve, and unless the full council agrees on it, it will not be touched. You can't have a majority vote to touch that money. So unless all 5 members agree, that money could not be touched for any project or program.
I would just like to add too, is Kathy, she said that we need to set up specific reasons why that reserve can be accessed. What is it reserved? What is it being reserved for, and what can we use it for? And I thought that was a good point.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. You know, so we're learning, and you know, I wish we were a rich tribe like Prairie Island and Shakopee and others out there, but we're not. And the main thing is that too, that we take care of ourselves and our neighbors and our elders. It's going to be a tough time. I was thinking on my way up to work this morning, what if our elderly feeding program goes down? You know, is that something that we can do as a household? I was thinking about where I live at Indian Point. If there's people receiving meals at Indian Point, maybe I could do those meals in lieu of if the Meals on Wheels program ended. Like, I might have 3 elders down there that are getting meals. Well, I'd be willing to cook meals for those 3 elders, just so they'd have 1 hot meal a day. Some people depend on that. So some people eat a little bit and save the rest for supper. I mean, their appetites aren't as much as they used to be, but just ways that we can think of helping each other as a community and as neighbors, and also to check on our elders, because our elders are our priority too. The elder feeding program is still going on. Food distribution has enough commodities till March. And that's fully staffed right now. Our housing program is fully staffed, and there is funds for our housing program to continue on. And so there are various programs and services that we want to ensure will continue, and if it comes down to it where we may have to close our doors, then we need to come together as a community to do that, to take over and take care of ourselves and our neighbors and elders.
You know, one thing this morning, and one of the employees recommended putting some of the office, like maybe in DNR, put them over here. Not because they can't pay their rent, but because maybe they can help us pay our lights, our heat, something. I mean, you're looking at all the options because, you know, money's getting tight. You know, we need to throw everything on the table to find out, you know, how can we save our financial, our tribal dollars. And anybody that gives me an idea, I'm going to pass it along. You know, I'm putting everything out there. I'm not going to just put it off the side and not bring it up. That's not what I was elected for. If people don't like it, then okay, they don't like it. If it's not going to work, then it won't work.
Any ideas or comments that people may have after listening to this today, please feel free to route those to the Tribal Council or any staff member that you may see. Just say, hey, maybe have you ever tried thinking about doing this? Because there's a lot of things that we don't think about that other people may think, and so it's very helpful for us.
Is this mine? I'm kidding. I know I just get mouthy. Mitz won't sit with me at tribal council meetings. She says I talk too much. But, you know, if I have ideas, I can't be quiet. And I'm kind of like Kathy. But what I'm thinking that is if we're going to make major decisions about us as a community, then the whole community should be here. And I think that if we can get enough if something that doesn't agree, the tribal council doesn't absolutely agree with, and the rest of the village does, maybe we could have a referendum. Maybe we could do things like that and get things done. We have to get things done. And I'm not going to get up here again.
Thank you, Stan. Oh, this is tonight, huh? I was handed a Bois Forte MCT Constitution Reform public meeting set for today. What time is it, Darren? 4:30. At 4:30 at the Bois Forte RTG building here in Nett Lake. Yeah, Darren Langren, just for people to know, Darren and some other tribal members are part of a constitution reform group that is working on the MCT Constitution, so I'll let Darren take it over.
Yeah, yep. There's a public meeting tonight. We're looking at reforming the Constitution, Minnesota Chippewa tribe, that all the tribes follow. Some of the topics that came up were getting rid of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe constitution and having each tribe build their own. And so we need input from the community. I'm a delegate. I'm not going to decide what happens. We need input from the community. Also, January 24th, Zagi Bagong is going to be doing some informational meetings. Facebook Live at 6 o'clock here. And it'll teach you about the Constitution. So this is your chance to get input on the Constitution, on how things are run here, if we decide to go with our own Constitution. Some of the band members were talking about instead of having a tribal council, you could have committees, finance committee, business committee. There's just this open door now that we've got to work on. And the Constitution is 14 pages. You can read it, understand it, and they've got resources on like the history behind how it's changed. So it's important that everyone comes and talks about this. If they decide to make changes, it'll go to a vote to all the band members of all the tribes. So the more input we get, the more we can successfully make this happen.
Thank you, Darren. I think that's very important because a lot of things you hear about is, for example, blood quantum, term limits, all kinds of things. That's in the Constitution. Some people, you know, the districts have been set, and some people across all the tribes, the MCT tribes, are saying that, you know, we need more representation. Our population has grown. We need more. We need not one district rep, we need two. These are things that are all in the Constitution that we don't have control of, but the band members of all the 6 bands do, because they're the MCT. So it's very important to get anybody's input on that, because this is your chance to make changes. Any other questions or comments? If not, go ahead, Shane.
If you don't feel comfortable sharing, you know, message one of us. Facebook, send us a text, something. I want to hear your suggestions, your ideas. But the more ideas we have, the more opportunities we can choose from to try and get by to survive the shutdown.
Millie? Talking to Mike.
Anyway, short people kind of thinking there, but I just wanted to let the people know, at least here in Nett Lake, for the duration, if someone needs emergency medical transport, I know the CHRs will probably end up being real busy. I will volunteer to take someone like once a week, but you have to let me know at least 3 days in advance so that I can make sure that I have 1, the funds, and 2, the car. Okay. So I just wanted everybody to know that.
Thank you, Millie. Tara?
Hi. I just have a few things. I really do think that the council and executive director, you guys really need to be more relatable to your people. You didn't even know when the food shelf was, you know. A lot of the stuff that goes on here that people are helping with, like I said before, when I kind of gave you guys a little bit heck last Wednesday about the people that run this organization, you've got to be more relatable to those people. You've got to do more referendums, like Shane said. Get the people's input. their vote. Just because they voted for you doesn't mean they're gonna vote for your specific 5 ideas that you have. Employee morale is not just low, it's at an all-time low. It's beyond ground level. I think everybody knows that. So we need to get that going. In order for you to be able to get that going, you need to be relatable to your people, because you're not. I'll just speak for maybe almost everybody in the organization. You're not. Community awareness. If the community had confidence in the tribal council or the tribal government, the leaders here, they would be here. They're not here. So I'm thinking because of the low count of people here, they don't have a good confidence in the tribal organization or the leadership. And we do not need to start talking about the big elephant in the room, and that's salaries. And I will say that, including mine. I do think that we need to start thinking about that. We blame the development corporation. We blame the decisions made by previous leaders. Yeah, that's happened. But that isn't completely here. You guys need to look at yourselves. I am a little bit afraid saying that right now. I'm afraid for my job. I think a lot of people are. But you know that I always stand up and I'll voice my opinion for a lot of people here. So I think you need to think about the big elephant in the room. You need to improve employee morale. You need to improve community confidence in you, and do more referendums.
Thank you, Tara. What I would like to see is if employees have ideas on how to improve their morale, please bring them forward. We need to, you're the people that are providing services. So if you have ideas, I mean, it's easy for people to say improve it, but we've tried different things, maybe not good enough. We've tried working with the salaries, but we need your input. It's the employees that are affected. We can try everything in the book and still not be able to touch maybe that morale issue. We need your ideas as staff. How do we do it? It's hard to sit here and say, what? I don't have it in front of me. Here it comes. Go ahead, Tara.
I apologize, really. I'm sorry to be this way. But I put a question forward last Wednesday, and I said, and it didn't come straight from me, a few people asked me to put it up there. Would the council consider going to 50,000, I would even say 60,000, straight across the board, along with the executive director, to save some money until this shutdown is over? I think you would be more relatable. I think people would be proud of you. Not just the 8.5% cut that you took and I took. That isn't relatable. You've got to know your people better. I think they'd have more confidence in you, because 8.5% cut at whatever salaries you guys make versus somebody who makes $11, $12, or even $14 is not sacrifice to me.
Thank you, Tara. And I don't have my phone with me, but I was going to use my calculator. Just so everybody knows, we did, the council did take reduced hours for this, so there is a small cut there, Tara. I'm not sure what that calculates out as far as with regards to where we're at with our salaries. If that hits that 50 or 60, I'm not sure if it hits. These guys, the District 1 reps are at 70 something, and so 64%. Okay, but we did take cuts in our salaries because we don't feel it's right, if we're making cuts across the board, that we maintain status quo with the council. And you know, I think that last year we took an 8.5% cut along with our senior management. We didn't reinstate it. We aren't getting increases, and staff are getting increases because salaries were mentioned. You know, salaries are a huge issue in recruitment and retention of great employees. And, you know, those also need to be looked at. And it's really hard because, one, it depends on your funding levels. And two, I think that because we're such a rural, isolated area, it's hard to recruit good people here. So what are ways we can do that? So that is a very difficult situation for us with the employee morale and then salaries. So we are trying to do something with that, but maybe we're not doing good enough on it. But anyway, any ideas would be helpful to from staff on how to improve morale.
So I think one of the things that you started out with was communication. Mm-hmm. You need to be clear with your communication, and you need to be consistent with your communication. For example, I asked for leave today and was told that I needed to be here by an email, that all senior management needed to be here to answer questions for the community, and not all senior management is here. Everybody knows that the directors made decisions on layoffs and reduced hours, and the council overturned those. So my question is, what was your decision-making process when you overturned those decisions? You gave an estimate of employees laid off and reduced hours. I would like to know if you know what the total number is, and then if you could break that down by band member versus non-band member.
We can do that.
And then my final question is, right now we don't know where we are. So based upon phase 1 and phase 2 layoffs, what is the economic impact of those today? What's going to be the impact of that next payroll? Mm-hmm. What is the impact of that going to be next month? Because people with reduced hours, people who've been laid off, it would be a lot easier to take if you were told, this is the number we need to get to. Nobody knows that. I asked the executive director that question yesterday, and he couldn't answer it. And I don't think that you guys can answer that right now either. And so, yes, employee morale has been in the basement. After your meetings last Thursday and Friday, it's completely gone. And so I think, you know, you as tribal leaders should answer those questions. Give your staff who've been on reduced hours or on a layoff the reasons why you made those decisions. Because I wasn't given a reason, and I don't know how many other staff were given a reason. And so I think that would at least start, because I echo some of Tara's comments. I think she's spot on. And I really think you guys need to answer those questions and be honest with the people.
Thank you, Miranda. Anybody want to comment?
Myself, when those decisions were made, I did message Travis on that and asked if the council made a decision on those layoffs, and he said no. So then I was kind of wondering, okay, who made those decisions and why? So I was asking those same questions. I was on leave that day. I was down in Duluth. I was on sick leave at a doctor appointment. Well, yes, communication is a problem. And we need to fix that. Yes, we do need to answer these questions, the questions that are being asked of us as tribal leaders. Yes, we do need to look at the salaries. Everybody's salaries. Not just ours, not just the council. Everybody's salaries. Because if we just only lower our salaries, what happens if we need to lower the employee salaries? Because money's getting tighter and tighter and tighter. What's that gonna do to morale then? Drop even lower. We're looking for suggestions, comments, anything, whether it's negative or positive. Because as a tribal leader, this is my first time. I've only been in office a little over 3 months. This is my first time going through a shutdown, a federal government shutdown. There's no policy or personnel policy or manual that shows what we need to do. No, but yes, you're right. We do need to answer questions. We do need to be consistent. We need to be fair and equal across the board.
Millie here again. I kind of wanted to make some comments a little bit on the morale problem. I have family members that work for the tribal government and other family members that work over or for the development corporation. And since news of the shutdown has broken, and whenever it went 3 weeks ago, I have seen a big change, especially in one of my sisters who I depend on for a lot of the support I need for dealing with my own issues in life. And so right now I feel that it's incumbent on me to help her deal with this situation, because there is a lot of stress involved in the current positions that they hold. And for my sons, well, there's always been a lot of stress involved with theirs for dealing with the public, and I feel like I try to help them with how to deal with when they get complaints, and how to deal with the negative stuff. Part of it is we need to come together and work together to get through this. I mean, there's always an end to these things. We gotta just not stay so focused on the bad things that are going on. We need to look at the good things too that are happening during this time, because there are people out there, people like me, that are willing to help. And it's I can't do it all the time, but during this crisis I can, because I have my own plans for my life too. There's other good things that are going on. There's people in the community that are there and willing to help. You just gotta open your vision and don't be so narrow-minded in your outlook. Open your vision a little bit, and you can see there's little spots of brightness around. So don't just look at the council. There's the church, the Nett Lake Baptist Church helps a lot during the crisis. There's different support groups. Even though a lot of those programs that run those support groups may be reduced, I think it's important that those support groups really be allowed to continue, because that's one place where you can get emotional and sometimes physical support from people. So I just wanted to point that out too. It's not just the council. I mean, this is a community-wide thing, and if the shutdown goes much longer, it's going to be, we're going to have to be starting to help people, the off-reservation people, and then we're going to have to include more than just our band if this, so I mean, we're hoping it doesn't happen, but who knows, it just might. So, thanks.
Thank you, Millie. Josh?
Good morning.
Good morning.
You didn't turn in your travel. No, I'm just kidding.
I didn't have any. Josh, I'd had none.
I wasn't even looking at you.
You say that to me all the time.
You know what? There is a really thick air around here, and the morale is not great. I think that for any people who are going to be working full-time and maintaining, you know, decent hours, decent paychecks, then they definitely need to be doing everything that they can to earn those hours during this time. Having said that, within just this week, I have seen a minor shift as far as the decision-making process. I have a hard time knowing who's running point on this whole thing. It seems like there's no clear-cut path, and I think that we need one person running point, we need one person making decisions, and they need to stand by those decisions. You know, you've got a lot of great employees taking cuts. They want to help. They need to know how to do that. And we need you guys to all be on the same page as far as that. My morale isn't great because if I get laid off, I don't know that I'll come back because you guys can't guarantee me job security. And so I think that those are serious things that you need to consider when you're asking people to sacrifice, and make sure that you're not asking them to make sacrifices that you yourselves wouldn't be prepared to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. In order to answer, Donna, are you going to talk?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Donna Hoffer, and I'm the Health and Human Services Director for those that are on live. And I've been with the tribe since 2017. And yes, this is emotional. This is difficult. And I do echo what the staff are saying here regarding the morale. Now, I personally, because I have misunderstood or I have not heard properly, got a written reprimand. So I am personally being, morale is whatever. I am not called into meetings to make decisions regarding the health and human services. So yeah, communication is unclear. And I as a, leader would appreciate, I guess, our leaders making communication a little clearer. Because regarding the meeting that I misunderstood, took time off, and I understand I'm hearing today that tribal council took time off when there's important decisions being made or gone away from the office. My leave was approved. I did tell my supervisor I was leaving for the day. And it was my birthday. So yeah, am I hurt? Am I, morale keeping up? It's hard, it's difficult. And then I have staff saying, we want to be appreciated, Donna. How do I do that? And I would like the tribal council to guide us on that. and it starts at the top. Appreciate us for our hard work. Because as a Health and Human Services, we have done outstanding work. We're continuing to do outstanding work. We have a lot of work to do, as you have directed us to open up the clinic to outside. We are working on that. We want to work on that. We have a lot of work to do. You know, we've implemented a lot of changes over the last year and a half or 2 years, and we'd like to continue that. So, and to do that for all the band members, you know, we need to hold each other and be kind to one another and support one another. And if I do wrong, come talk to me or pull me in and say, hey, Donna, you know, instead of, you know, criticizing me all the time or criticizing the staff. So that's what I'm asking of my tribal council members. Okay, because we are, you know, a nation that should pull together at this time. We are all hurting in this. And we are, you know, difficult to find one another. And we are like walking on eggshells. You know, who do we, you know, like, should I talk to this person or not? You know, because I don't want them to get offended. But I'm being kind and gentle as I can be. But at the same time, confusion with implementing the personnel policy manual. Because there is resolutions and there is a personnel policy manual that has been adopted by you guys. You know, and I would like and appreciate some support with it. That's what I'm asking of my tribal council. And I say mine because I am a Bois Forte band member. You know, so thank you.
Thank you, Donna. I want to get back to Miranda's questions that she had also, because I don't want them to go unanswered. Number one, we were not aware that the directors were supposed to be here. We've been out of town for the past 2 days, and I did not know that you were on leave or that it was not, we weren't aware of that. Were you guys aware of that? No. Okay. Did you want to say something, Shane?
I mentioned that I had issued a memo to the staff. I just asked them if they could be here because people from the community were here and they had questions about their programs, specific questions about the programs. And I did talk with Miranda and asked, I said, if she needed to ultimately, you know, had something that was personally important that she wouldn't be here. Is this on? Anyway, I was going to approve it. I said, just have somebody from your staff here, I said, to answer some human resource questions if any of those come up. And she said she could be here. The other staff members, right now we have Public Works is dealing with an issue with our lift stations in Vermilion right now. And but Joel, he was dealing with that this morning. So, okay. And then one of the other directors that is down to 2 days a week is not here. So I told him that, you know, if his staff is here and I could also answer some of those questions. So I did ask the staff, the directors, to be here just in case there were questions about their programs during the shutdown and how it was going to be affected, where services are going to be affected, and so on.
Thank you, Corey. Go ahead, Shane, were you going to say something? One of your other questions, Miranda, was with regards to the selection for how staff were, the second round, I guess, that were laid off or reduced hours. Somebody came up with the suggestion after phase 1 that, and I think it was that same day that we met, that it would be good to meet with the directors to see what their plans are or their ideas are for staff reduction or making cuts. And so that happened and that was done. And then the council, because in the personnel policy it does say that it's up to the directors to approve the layoffs. And I know that some of the council, I guess at this time, felt that they needed to take ownership of what was happening here with regards to cutting staff, laying off or reducing hours. So we took ownership of that as a council to do that, even though it does state in the personnel policy that the directors have that authority to lay off.
Yes, and then I'm realizing that it was at the director's discretion to do the layoffs, and that we as a tribal council, we're dragged across Facebook and all this and that, and negativity and all that, and I understand that. That's fine. That's great. That's good. And myself, I was one of them. Is that it should fall upon the tribal council to make those decisions, because we are the ones that say, if this person is hired, if this person is whatever, we approve it. We should give approval to the layoffs as well. That should be on us.
So some of those decisions that were made with regards to staffing also depended on the units, and because the council, here, let me back up. On January 14th, the council met, but there was only 3 members of the council there with senior management with regards to phase 2 layoffs or reduction in hours. And so then a list was provided on who was going to be laid off and who the plans that the directors had for their departments. Some of the council members had concerns with providers being cut and emergency services. So we then had that was on Tuesday. The meeting was Monday. The list was provided on Tuesday. Wednesday, we had an all-staff meeting, which lasted till noon, so we really didn't get a chance to discuss. We did start meeting Wednesday afternoon with I'm trying to think of this. Wednesday afternoon, we started meeting with programs, as someone had mentioned that it'd be good to see the rationale and how they came up with those cuts and recommendations. Well, we couldn't get to all the programs, so then we did some of the programs in the afternoon on Wednesday, and then we also did them Thursday morning. And we also, at that time, developed a list of priorities, because that's one of the things that our staff had mentioned, that it'd be nice to have a list of priorities or know what you're looking for with regards to services for people. So we did that. Then we started going through, late Thursday afternoon, the council started going through the layoffs and reduction of hours. And we were here till 5 that evening, I believe. And then the next day, we got together because we wanted to get something out as soon as possible to all staff to give them some, what we thought would be better, clear direction. And so that memo actually didn't go out till Thursday late afternoon, because that's how long it took us to discuss departments and some of the cuts that were going to be made. Because we didn't all agree on everything. We can agree to disagree. But there were some concerns with some departments being short-staffed due to positions not being hired yet or posted, and providers for the services and emergency services. So it was a long discussion. And so actually we did not leave here till almost 4:30 on Friday, because that's how late. We wanted to make sure our staff knew where we were coming from with regards to the reductions. So that's kind of how that whole process happened. And Miranda, what was another one of your questions you had? Okay. Miranda had mentioned total employees affected, to break it down between band member and non-band member, and that can be done. That has not been done yet. We have been gone too from the office since the decision was made Friday with regards to who it was. And then also, we've been gone Monday, Tuesday, but what we're also probably going to do with that, Miranda, is take it a little step farther, is also include, for example, if a person is married to a band member and their kids are enrolled or whatever, so if it affects a band member family, let's put it that way. So we'll add that component to it also. Any other questions that I didn't answer?
I think I'd just like to point out that even though I was gone last Friday, I did send the tribal council an email informing them that even though I'm gone, send me what you want me to vote on. What actions are we going to take action on? Send it to me in email so I can look at it and vote on it. So even though I was out of the office, I still voted on some of these issues.
And that email went through kind of late, I believe, on Friday afternoon, after 2-ish, I think. That's a Kim Greiner question, and I don't have that figure in front of me. It should. And right now, what we're trying to do is hopefully, we're trying to make ourselves, is that you? We're trying to make ourselves last as long as we can. And right now, the way it looks is we can make it till the end of February. We know that for a fact. But come February 4th when we meet, we will know those factors, and that's when we'll really be making probably more cuts. You have to come up here, Ashley. You still have to come up here, Ashley. People can't hear you when you don't use the mic. Okay, Ashley.
Good morning. My name is Ashley. I am the CHR Community Health Representative, and also I work with the Elderly Needs Program. We have restructured our...
They can't hear you.
Okay.
You can move that. Oh. There. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Back there? Yeah? Okay. So we had kind of restructured our Elderly Needs Program to like a emergency need basis. And so prior to this, we had authorized, approved people to get beds and like carpet and things like that. But right now we're going down to emergency needs that can threaten your property or your health. And recently I have gotten a lot of questions if they can be approved for beds, and we have been denying that. But does anybody know where we can get beds from? Because I know Fortune Bay at one time was giving beds away. Do you know of any, like the Salvation Armies? Like, do you guys have any resources where I can direct these people other than just telling them, no, sorry, I can't approve that? Anybody?
But you bring up a good point, Ashley, as for resources, you know, are there resources out there that we don't know about, or for specific things, like say for if this person needs a bed? There might be organizations out there that might be willing to do that. I think we would just have to start contacting them and see, you know, what's available and what's not available.
As far as I know, no other program, like there's no other programs out there for these kind of needs, like a bed or a couch.
Jackie, can you come up? She had her hand up.
She's on.
I'll turn off the mic.
I'm related to Stan.
What did she say? What did she say?
I said I'm related to Stan. Hi, Stan. So I know this is kind of an odd time to mention it, but bridging in the Twin Cities will service any area. You just have to, it's free furniture. And what you do is you just becoming a referring agency, and I'm working on that already. And then usually a worker will go out into your home, assess your needs, and then make an appointment to pick up furniture. So
Thank you, Jackie.
They do have beds. They have, but I don't recommend their beds. But since you mentioned other furniture, they'll furnish your whole house. You say you've got 3-bedroom house, whatever. So There's a referral fee, which is about $80 for the family, and then just getting the furniture up here. So maybe if the tribe wanted to do that on a larger scale, do like 3 or 4 families and at a time, and then that way a truck could go down and get the furniture. I've looked for closer places up here just because of the need, and I haven't found anything, but I did talk to Bridging and they said they would service anywhere, but you still have to come get the stuff.
Miigwech, Jackie.
Yep. I forgot my question. What? Oh, yeah. So whoever works on the cultural preservation stuff, whatever, the food, here I am worried about. I'm worried about food. Just kidding. No, my parents used to can and dry meat. So when we were talking about sustainability, whoever's working on that, that would be good if they learned how to dry deer meat and can fish, can deer meat, canned vegetables, things like that. Ways that you don't need a refrigerator or electricity or whatever, because really I don't know how long this goes. And I wanted to again say, and I keep saying that, I don't support that wall. I don't know why he's, putting us all in such a situation. And I do strongly support the tribes getting together. Not just us, but gathering with other tribes and going to Washington and talk about how they need to respect our treaties now.
Yep, I agree,
and not
Jackie.
the wall.
Thank you, Jackie. Were you gonna say something, Chief?
Yeah, and excuse me. I was we lost a really good employee a while back, Tracy Chosa. She was awesome at being able to help families obtain furniture for their homes, different situations where she could help food and whatever. That might be something we need to look at, is contracting with her for something to hook us up with these programs again and get the information we need. Just a thought.
Any other questions or comments from the Tribal Council or audience?
I have one. One of the band members just messaged me. Why won't the Nett Lake Credit Union defer a loan payment during the shutdown? So I'm just raising that up for a band member.
Right now, that is a credit union issue. The council has no say in the credit union, but I think we can relay that information to them.
Yep, that's true.
You said that, did you have a meeting this week with Congressman Stauber? I was wondering what strides have been made on the DC front. Any communication between our senators or? I did have a discussion with Senator Tina Smith the other day, and she and Lisa Murkowski, I think, is out of Alaska. They're making headway, but what's his name Mitch McConnell won't even let anything come through unless there's funding for the wall. They've done what they can, and they're still working on it day after day after day. The council, this meeting, we will be meeting with Congressman Pete Stauber on Friday with the other 10 tribes. And this meeting was set up just to do an introduction. It was set up long before this shutdown, to do like an introduction, because he's our new congressman, and let him be aware of some of the tribal issues. So it's kind of coming at a good time. So we will be meeting with Mr. Stauber, Congressman Stauber, at that Friday. And I know that one of the things that the initial meeting was geared for was the MCT land transfer, land exchange for the MCT land to go back to the tribes. Now will probably be a lot talk about the shutdown. So they're probably, and I'm sure the Dakota tribes have other things also that they want to bring up, but I know that was one of the main things was when it was first initiated was the MCT land issue. But now the government shutdown will be part of that also. So when do we go to DC and rally?
We have a freeze on travel right now.
I'll lift it.
Lift it. Thank you. You said you were done last time. Go ahead, Stan.
I got to raise the mic. No, I was just thinking, this one last thing I wanted to say is that here's what I'm hoping, that sometime in the near future, our band could try to find an apparatus with other than Minnesota Chippewa tribe to contact other tribal leaders throughout the country to converse on this issue with the government shirking their duties and breaking the treaties again, because this is going on and it just keeps getting worse. And there has to be some way. We have numbers, throughout the country, Alaska, and we have the numbers to make a difference politically. And so I think that we should be looking at that. I wish somebody would start the dialogue with the right people, with everybody they can, to put together some kind of a coalition that's going to take some drastic steps or threaten drastic steps with the government, because they're not doing their job. Yep. And if they don't, you can't do yours and we can't do ours, and our survival is based on how we can talk and move and maneuver to get things done within the government and within our own state. That's what I'm hoping that you guys do and really look into that.
Thank you, Stan. Just another piece of information before we get done here is that we will also be meeting with our lobbyist on Friday at 1 o'clock. And we were in the process, I guess kind of it's on hold now, but the council was planning on going out to DC in February. Because I think it's important for our new tribal council members to go out there. I know Travis went last year, I believe it was, and it's important for our council members to know how the whole process works within the federal government. And so we were planning a trip for the council in February, but then the shutdown happened now, so we may still be going, I'm not sure, but we are going to be meeting also with our lobbyists, so just an FYI.
I think this just came in from one of the band members. It says, "Why aren't you standing by your director's decisions?" Not sure if that was asked or not. Sometimes, when you have 5 members on a council, 2 can go for it and the other 2 cannot. Just to keep that in mind. It's just the way it is. Sometimes we agree and sometimes we disagree. When we meet with our directors, we want to understand their reasoning for the recommendations as we want to share our reasoning for what we want to do. And then sometimes we're not going to support our directors and make a different change, make a different choice. I've said it before in previous meetings, I'm not going to be a rubber stamp. People ask me questions, I'm going to ask questions for them. I'm going to look at the situation and try to make the best choice possible. Thank you.
Miranda?
So the reason I asked the question about the number of employees affected and whether they were band members or non-band members, I really think that's important information for you guys to have. I was really hoping you would have been able to give me those numbers just like that. But I'm also your HR director. The decisions so far, including the layoffs and reduced hours scheduled to start next week, is 55 employees. 39 of them are band members and 16 of them are non-band members. And just a quick off the top of my head, and I don't know everybody and everybody's relationships and everybody's household information, but it also has the potential impact to impact at least 50 other band members, all of the decisions that were made so far. So that's pretty significant. Mm-hmm. And I hope that you guys take that into consideration when you're making further decisions. And like I said, you really should know where you're at today with your money, the impacts it's having. Because when it's going to affect, you know, almost 100 employees and have a ripple effect out from that point, you know, it's significant.
Thank you, Miranda.
I think that we should pursue that, the answers to those questions, and continue to monitor them day by day. This should be a priority. Also, communication. What we decide as a tribal council and give it to our executive director should be exactly what he pushes out to the directors. There shouldn't be any word changing or nothing. Exact communication. That's how I feel about it.
Okay, Shane. Oh. Today's meeting there wasn't, I believe, but the previous meetings there were. It is recorded. Yeah, they're recording it. It will be on YouTube.
The suggestions that were given then, do you think the very important ones we should get put on agenda so we can monitor or follow through?
Are you speaking about the money, Darren?
Any of these suggestions that people brought up, open salary information, stuff like that. These are things they want, and
we do have to abide by our data privacy ordinance.
I believe the federal government has posted, I'm pretty sure, all of their employees' wages, and you can look them up online.
Mm-hmm.
So the next step would be to change our data privacy, right?
Right, that's the way to do it.
So, like that issue and all these other issues that we're talking about now, we're just talking about. How do we know if you guys are going to do something about it? For morale, for me, I'd like to see a report from the council every month, what they're doing, where they go, the training they go to, the meetings they go to. What'd you learn? What are you going to bring back? Nobody knows what you're doing. You know, except for your council meetings and stuff. So it would be really nice to see that. You know, it'd be good for you. It'd be good for the band members. Everyone would learn from what you guys are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So
thank you, Darren. You have to come up here.
I think kind of like following up on that Darren's statement. I always post when I'm going to go to a meeting. I post that on my group page. This was posted on January 8th at 11:19 a.m. I talked about that I was going to be down in Duluth for the 1854 meeting. I also posted the agenda on there. So I am trying to share information with band members on my group page. And if anybody has questions, ask them anytime you want.
Okay.
My group page is Shane Drift, Bois Forte, District 1 representative. Nope, I have people on there. No, I've had band members that aren't my Facebook friends request to join the page, and anybody that requests, I've approved it. Huh? It is Shane Drift, District 1 representative updates.
That's why I wanted Stan to go first, so he wouldn't be moving the mic again. Kind of in reference a little bit to those reports on when you go to conferences or when you go to meetings or whatever. When I worked for the RTC back in the day, that was pre-2000. I really am old. When I would go off to trainings and stuff, when I came back, I did those reports, and in there I summarized the training that I received, and I also pointed out how I was gonna put that to use in my job, and I turned in those reports, and I did all that, and at the time I got a compliment from one of the RTC members that was the kind of report that they wanted to see from everybody, not just one or two persons here or there, but everybody needed to do that, because most of the reports that they were getting was left for the airport, flew down to here, came back home. I mean, you know, there wasn't nothing in there how they were going to or how they were going to use that knowledge or whatever they did. And I think if all the employees filled out reports like this, the tribal council would be able to hand out information. But if they're only getting one or two, well, then of course they don't have the information to give. So you need to look at your own self, your own reports, the own stuff that you do. When I was speaking before about the morale problem, I mean, and like I said, it's not just the council, it's the program people, the people that are floor level, the entry level, the person you first see when you walk in the door. You got to be aware too. You need to be accountable to the community. I mean, a lot of times you walk into some place, all you want to do is ask a simple question and you get a, oh, I'll pass it on. They pass the buck. I mean, so it's, like I said, it's not just the council. It's everybody that needs to do that communication. Everybody that works for and earns a paycheck here. But otherwise, here's Stan.
I'm getting old. I forgot what I was going to say. No, I just want to reiterate that, you know, in this village, through the years, I was born here on this reservation, and I've lived here till I was 14. Then I moved, and I came back in my early 20s. But what I've seen is it's changed so many times, and in so many ways, and hard ways. It's been even toxic at times to live here because of the fractionalized, the families and the clans and the what camps have all been, they've separated. We don't have the unity that we had when I was a kid. We had a roundhouse up on the hill, and we used to have meetings there. And then that was the only time I remember where we could form a fair consensus about what our needs were and the directions that we're going to travel. And this has happened because of money, I think, because then you have haves and have-nots, and the have-nots are at the bottom end, of course. And it's been, and I'm at the bottom end. I've been ever since I came home. I've lived in poverty ever since I came home. I had a few good jobs, painting jobs, but other than that, I've been just minimal wages, and I'm okay with that. As long as I can survive. But I always have this enduring dream that I could do something big and something good for my people, and I think, and I do have that. And but I'm saying that we do need to come together and to try to a little more understanding and be a little bit more tolerant of each other, and all the reasons, all the jealousies, the petty jealousies that don't have to be there. I witnessed somebody bought a new car, and they drove by, and somebody said, turned and said to the people they were standing with, "Look at that SOB. I wonder what he did to get that." You know, that's insane jealousy. We need to find a way to get back together, to be a community, a united community, because the times are only going to get tougher. And we're going to have to live together peacefully and for each other like in the old days. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Stan. Any other comments or questions?
This one just came in. It says, how is this affecting the ambulance service? I do believe the shutdown is not going to affect the ambulance service. This is one of the ones that we're going to keep going. It is a priority.
Yep, Jane is correct. The ambulance service is not affected. The fire department is not affected. Any emergency services are not affected. There was a question about the clinic. The clinic is is full with services. There were a few changes made up there at the clinic, but it is still the same hours, still the same services. No providers were cut. No doctors or nurse practitioners or PAs were cut. There was just a small difference on one of the dental staff. So. Well, we're thinking, just so people can understand that, you know, the health department is one of the largest salary group that we have because we've got professionals there. And so right now those services will continue, and we know for sure they'll be able to continue till the end of February, and then we'll reassess everything or know everything more on February 4th. No other questions or comments. I want to thank everybody for coming today, and thanks for your concerns and your questions and comments. I don't look at it as being negative, but a way for us to improve. So we do have a meeting in Vermilion scheduled for 2 o'clock this afternoon to talk with the Vermilion community. And thank you, and Miigwech. Oh. Thank you. I agree. Well, she mentioned employee morale, so I mentioned that. About cutting ourselves to 40 or 50,000. I was going to look at that and see what we've cut ourselves to. Because we did take a reduction of hours, but I haven't calculated mine yet. So I'm not sure. I know mine won't be down to the 60. 20% cut? Okay. I'll have to do the math. I don't have my calculator here, and then Tara's other question was what? Morale, cutting, salary.
Just being so out of touch.
Okay, yep. Trying to be more approachable and more. Okay.
So by having that 50,000,
Adam sent me that.
Oh, right now it says that if the district reps are making over 70,000 at full time, if we've been cut to 64 hours of pay period, they are at 60. Stipends for the 1854 and the MCT meetings are stipends. And we do have a 1099 that we get for tax purposes, so we do have to pay taxes on that also.
Does it help to put our the RTC meeting schedule out there. You know, like the one WICO develops, the one all the senior management sees, where we have meetings, the meetings that are scheduled every day. Now I know there is not stipends for those meetings, but every day there's pretty much a meeting where the council is required to be at. Like this morning we met with the Office of Head Start and Early Childhood, and there was a program for the state, and that started at 8 a.m. Like Kathy said, that ran a little bit late with the state people this morning. So would that help if we put that, you know, just so you see how many meetings are required? You know, and it's always and I know that WICO's schedule is always evolving and changing as meetings come up, and we try to look for times to fit either agencies or whether the federal or state or other entities that want to meet with the tribal council. We look for time frames to fit those in there, and so that probably would help.
And also on those schedules that Corey's talking about, we do, if we know we're going to be gone, we put ourselves out so people will know we're gone on leave, because there's times when signatures are needed. So I like to put mine on the schedule so people know I'm not available.
I got a question from a band member. It says, has the executive director taken a reduction?
Yeah, I'm down 20% also. So just like everybody else. And I mentioned that early on, and I mentioned that our employee staff, and I mentioned it to the directors when we met with those guys. I said, you know, we should be willing to do the same. I'm willing to do the same if we're asking our employees to do that, and if we're asking for a reduction in pays or a reduction in layoffs. So.
Also, I have one more comment with regards to that. Not all the directors took a cut. Just some directors took a cut. So.
I have one more thing. This is what I was going to say when Millie so rudely interrupted me. But I thought this years ago, and I completely forgot about it. But had I ever been elected to the tribal council, one thing I would have tried to push through is mandate that every person that travels for training bring back a written report of what they've learned and then file it here. So we'll have that, because we all know what happens sometimes when people go to trainings that they don't get nothing out of, and it's a waste of money. And another thing is telecommunications. We can do some meetings. Randy knows this. We talked about this before, having telecommunications for some meetings, rather than pay out all the travel and the time off task. All those hours of traveling, it adds up. It adds up to a lot of money. And I think if we start taking those kind of measures, we're going to be more efficient, and we're going to be have more information in our archives and our records of what the subject matter is of these meetings, because we're paying for them.
Thank you, Stan. When you mention the meetings and stuff, just so everybody knows, all the RTC meetings will now be in Nett Lake. That was a cut we made. We are charged $500 every time we have a meeting in Vermilion. So we now have cut that out. So all the RTC meetings will be held in Nett Lake. There will no longer be RTC meetings held in Vermilion until further notice.
I'd just like to say, Stan, that was a good idea about the employees that go off to travel and training, that they provide a report of what they learned as well. You know, and then I would like to see that as a tribal council member.
Will you be hosting something over in Vermilion for the people to watch, at least, like at the center? So if they don't have internet or YouTube? Yeah. Okay. And then
Everett's shaking his head yes.
Oh, okay. Cool. And then another point I wanted to bring up too is, you know, we're in an emergency crisis. People are running out of money. you guys voted to stop 401k loan payments or allow people to take out loans. But it will be. And if this happens again, that's a last resort thing for people to have. Bad idea. It's their money. I think that should be a referendum item. I don't think a community that people didn't vote in or organize should be able to tell them what they should do with their money.
Thank you, Darren. Anybody else? Thank you all for coming today, and oops, Jackie. No, the school is not affected. They're funded through the state. It's ISD 707.
Oh, I sit on the school board. No, we're fine. So.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming. We'll keep you updated as much as we can. Miigwech.